The courtroom was a cathedral of silence, broken only by the hum of neural scanners and the soft clack of Hoa's stylus on her scribe's tablet. She sat in her assigned alcove, a shadow among the towering pillars of Veridica's high court, recording every word of Judge Jude's verdict. The defendant, a gaunt woman with hollow eyes, stood rigid as the neural band on her temple pulsed red, branding her a liar. She'd been accused of hoarding resources during the city's latest ration cycle, a crime punishable by exile. Maris Val, you have violated the covenant of truth, Jude intoned, his voice resonating like a gavel. His black robes absorbed the dim light, and his face, lined yet unyielding, held the authority of Veridica's judiciary. For your deceit, you are sentenced to the wastes. May you find redemption beyond our walls. Maris screamed, a raw, desperate sound that echoed through the chamber. I didn't do it. The scanners are wrong. Guards seized her, their neural batons crackling as they dragged her toward the exit. Hoa's stylus faltered, her hand trembling. She'd seen this scene countless times in her 2 years as Jude's scribe, but today, it gnawed at her. Maris's plea felt too familiar, too much like the cries of her parents when they'd been exiled a decade ago. Hoa glanced at Jude. He sat motionless, his obsidian eyes scanning the courtroom. To Veridica, he was justice incarnate, a pillar of the judiciary that kept the city from collapsing into chaos. To Hoa, he was more, her mentor, her savior. When her parents were taken, Jude had plucked her from the orphanage, trained her in the law, and given her purpose. Yet the weight of his verdicts, the endless stream of exiles, pressed harder on her with each passing day. Scribe Hoa, Jude's voice cut through her thoughts. File the verdict and prepare for the next case. Yes, Your Honor, she replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. She uploaded the record to the judiciary's archive, her fingers moving mechanically. As she worked, a memory surfaced, her mother's face, tear-streaked, as guards tore her from their home. We told the truth, her mother had whispered. Hoa had been too young to understand then, but now, at 22, those words haunted her. After the session, Hoa retreated to the scribe's quarters, a cramped warren beneath the judiciary's tower. The air was stale, thick with the hum of servers and the faint buzz of surveillance drones. She sank onto her cot, her tablet glowing with the day's records. Maris Bell's file stared back at her, the neural scan data stark and unyielding. Hoa scrolled through it, searching for inconsistencies, though she knew it was futile. The scanners were infallible, or so the judiciary claimed. A soft knock startled her. She opened the door to find Kael, a lanky figure with a crooked smile and eyes that glinted with defiance. He was a technician, one of the many who maintained Veridica's tech, but Hoa knew him as something else, a member of the Veritas, a resistance group that whispered of the judiciary's corruption. Got a minute? Kael asked, glancing over his shoulder. Hoa hesitated. Meeting Kael was risky, the judiciary's cameras were everywhere. But curiosity, and a growing unease, pulled her in. Make it quick, she said, stepping aside. Kael slipped inside, producing a data chip from his sleeve. This is bigger than anything we've done before, he said, his voice low. An override code for Jude's neural archive. Everything's in there, verdicts, interrogations, the truth they don't want us to see. Hoa's breath caught. The archive was the judiciary's heart, a vault of secrets guarded by layers of encryption and neural locks. If the Veritas could access it, they could expose the judiciary's lies. But the thought of betraying Jude twisted her gut. Why me? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Kael leaned closer. You're his scribe. You have access to his chambers, his schedules. You can get us in without tripping the alarms. Hoa, this could prove what happened to your parents. Her parents. The mention of them was a knife to her chest. They'd been traitors, accused of falsifying records to evade taxes. The scanners had condemned them, and they'd been exiled when Hoa was 12. She'd spent years searching for answers, but the judiciary's files were sealed. Jude had told her to let it go, that the truth was served. But what if he'd lied? I need to think, Hoa said, her hands clenching. Kael's smile faded. We're moving tomorrow night. With or without you, we're hitting the archive. But you're our best shot. He pressed the chip into her palm and left, his footsteps fading into the hum of the quarters. Hoa stared at the chip, its weight heavier than it should have been. She hid it beneath her cot and tried to sleep, but her mind churned. She saw Jude's face, stern yet kind, praising her work. She saw her parents, their silhouettes vanishing into the wastes. And she saw Maris Val, her screams echoing in the courtroom. What was the truth? And was she brave enough to chase it? The next morning, Hoa accompanied Jude to the High Court for a high-profile case, a merchant named Torin, accused of smuggling tech from the Outer Territories. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Torin, a broad man with a defiant glare, stood before Jude, his neural band glowing faintly. Hoa recorded the proceedings, her tablet vibrating with a message from Kael, tonight. Vault. 0100 hours. She deleted it, her heart racing. Jude's questioning was relentless. Did you smuggle neural dampeners into Veridica? He asked, his voice cutting through the silence. Torin's jaw tightened. No, Your Honor. The neural band stayed green, but Jude's eyes narrowed. He signaled the technicians, who adjusted the scanner's sensitivity. The band flickered, then pulsed red. Torin's face paled. That's impossible, he shouted. You're rigging it. Silence, Jude said, his tone final. The scanners do not lie. You are guilty. Hoa's stylus froze. Rigging the scanners? The thought was heretical, yet Torin's desperation mirrored Maris's. She glanced at Jude, searching for a crack in his composure, but he was stone. As the guards took Torin away, Jude turned to her. You're pale, Hoa. Are you unwell? She forced a smile. Just a headache, Your Honor. He studied her, his gaze piercing. Rest, then. I need you sharp for tomorrow's docket. Back in her quarters, Hoa retrieved the data chip, her resolve wavering. She thought of Jude's kindness, how he'd given her books, taught her the law, shielded her from the Judiciary's harsher factions. But she also thought of the exiles, the families torn apart, the whispers of manipulated scanners. If the Veritas were right, Jude wasn't just complicit, he was the architect of Veridica's lies. That night, Hoa slipped through the Judiciary's lower levels, her Scribe's badge granting her access to restricted corridors. The archive vault loomed ahead, a steel monolith guarded by neural sensors. She inserted Kael's chip into a terminal, her hands shaking as the override code began decrypting. The screen lit up, displaying files labeled Purge. Her parents' names appeared, marked as neutralized for sedition. The memos detailed falsified neural readings, orchestrated by Jude to silence dissenters. Hoa's vision blurred with tears. Jude had known. He'd condemned her parents, used her loyalty to bury his sins. She copied the files, her anger hardening into resolve. The Veritas would broadcast this, and Jude would fall. But as she ejected the chip, the vault's doors hissed open. Jude stood there, his robes a dark silhouette. Hoa, he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. I trusted you. Her heart stopped. You lied, she said, clutching the chip. You exiled my parents, knowing they were innocent. You're a monster. Jude stepped closer, his face etched with regret. The Judiciary preserves order. Your parents threatened that order. I spared you, Hoa. I gave you a life. You gave me a cage, she spat. This ends tonight. Jude's eyes darkened. He pressed a device on his wrist, and alarms blared. Guards stormed in, their neural batons glowing. Hoa ran, but they were faster. They pinned her, wrenching the chip from her hand. Jude took it, his voice soft but final. You've chosen exile, Hoa. I'm sorry. As the guards dragged her away, Hoa's mind raced. The Veritas were waiting, but she'd failed. Or had she? Kael's backup plan, uploading the files remotely, might still work. In the transport to the wastes, she glimpsed a broadcast on a guard's screen, Jude's face, exposed as a liar, as Veridica erupted in chaos. Hoa's betrayal had sparked a revolution, but she was alone, bound for the wastes. The truth had cost her everything, yet as she stared into the desert, she felt a flicker of hope. Her parents' names echoed in her mind, their legacy her only anchor. The transport's engines roared as it sped across the wastes, kicking up clouds of ash-colored sand. Hoa sat shackled in the cargo hold, her wrists raw from the neural cuffs that pulsed faintly, suppressing her thoughts. The guards ignored her, their faces hidden behind visors, but she caught snippets of their conversation over the engine's hum. "City's burning," one muttered. "Those Veritas rats are broadcasting Jude's files everywhere." Hoa's heart leaped. Kael's backup plan had worked, the files she'd copied were exposing the Judiciary's lies. But the victory felt hollow. She was bound for the wastes, a barren expanse where exiles perished under a merciless sun or fell to mutated scavengers. Her betrayal had ignited a spark, but she might never see its flames. The transport shuddered, then screeched to a halt. Shouts erupted outside, followed by the crackle of energy weapons. The doors blew open, and a figure in a hooded cloak stormed in, a neural disruptor in hand. The guards slumped, their cuffs sparking. The figure lowered their hood, revealing Kael's crooked smile. "Miss me?" he said. Hoa's relief was tinged with suspicion. "How did you find me?" "Veritas has eyes everywhere," Kael said, slicing through her cuffs with a laser cutter. "Come on. We've got a revolution to finish." Outside, a sandstorm loomed, obscuring the horizon. Kael led her to a battered skiff manned by two Veritas fighters, their faces scarred from waste survival. "We're headed to a safe house," Kael explained as the skiff sped off. "The broadcasts are working, people are rioting, demanding Jude's head. But he's holed up in the Judiciary Tower, rallying loyalists. We need you, Hoa. You know his weaknesses." Hoa clutched the skiff's railing, the wind whipping her hair. "I'm exiled, Kael. I failed. Why risk this for me?" Kael's smile faded. "Because you're the one who got us the files. And because," he hesitated, then pulled a data chip from his pocket. "We intercepted a message from the wastes. It's about your parents." Hoa's breath caught. She snatched the chip and plugged it into her scribe's tablet, which Kael had salvaged. A grainy hologram flickered to life, showing a woman with Hoa's eyes, older but unmistakable, her mother, Lyra. "Hoa, if you're seeing this, you found the truth," Lyra said, her voice trembling. "We're alive, in a settlement called Haven. The Judiciary's scanners were rigged, but we've built something here. Find us. You're our hope." The hologram faded. Hoa's chest tightened, tears mixing with the sand on her face. Her parents were alive. Jude's lies had stolen a decade from her, but she had a chance to reclaim it. "Where's Haven?" she asked. Kael pointed to the storm's heart. "Deep in the wastes. But Jude's forces are hunting exiles, trying to crush any resistance before it spreads. We'll get you there, but we need your help to take him down first." The skiff reached a crumbling outpost, the Veritas safe house. Inside, Hoa met Mira, a former judge turned Veritas leader, her silver hair a stark contrast to her fierce gaze. Mira sized Hoa up, her voice cold. "You betrayed Jude, but you got caught. Why should we trust you?" "Because I've lost everything for this," Hoa said, meeting Mira's stare. "Jude took my family, my life. I want him to face the truth." Mira nodded, grudgingly. "Then prove it. We're planning an assault on the Judiciary Tower. Jude's using the scanners to root out rebels. You know his methods, help us disable them." Hoa spent hours strategizing with the Veritas, sharing Jude's habits, his reliance on neural overrides, his private chamber's access codes, his paranoia about betrayal. As she spoke, guilt gnawed at her. Jude had been her mentor, almost a father. She remembered his rare kindnesses, gifting her a law book, shielding her from rival judges. But those memories clashed with the truth, His role in the Purge, the exiles, her parents' suffering. That night, as the storm raged outside, Hoa couldn't sleep. She found Kael tinkering with a neural disruptor. "You defected from the Judiciary," she said. "Why?" Kael's hand stilled. "My brother was exiled for questioning a verdict. I fixed the scanners that condemned him. When I realized they could be manipulated, I ran. The Veritas gave me a purpose." He looked at her. "You're not alone in this, Hoa. We're all fighting for someone." His words steadied her. She wasn't just betraying Jude, she was fighting for her parents, for Maris Vel, for Torin, for every victim of Veridica's lies. By dawn, she was ready. The Veritas launched their assault at midnight, infiltrating Veridica through forgotten tunnels. Hoa led a strike team, Mira, Kael, and a dozen fighters, toward the Judiciary Tower. The city was a war zone, with citizens clashing against Judiciary enforcers. Holographic screens blared the Veritas broadcasts, Jude's face a symbol of betrayal. Inside the tower, Hoa navigated familiar corridors, her heart pounding. They reached the neural control room, where scanners fed data to Jude's archive. Kael hacked the system, uploading a virus to disable the scanners, but an alarm triggered. Guards swarmed, and a firefight erupted. Myra's disruptor failed too, but Kael took a neural baton to the chest, collapsing. "Kael!" Hoa screamed, dragging him behind a console. His breathing was shallow, but he grinned weakly. "Finish it, Hoa. For all of us." Mira pulled her away. "He's gone. Move." Hoa fought back tears, her resolve hardening. They reached Jude's chambers, a stark room lined with screens displaying Veridica's chaos. Jude stood at the center, his robes tattered, his face haggard but defiant. "Hoa," he said, his voice a mix of sorrow and anger. "You've destroyed everything I built." "You built it on lies," Hoa said, stepping forward. "You exiled my parents, rigged the scanners, crushed anyone who questioned you." "Why?" Jude's eyes softened, a flicker of the mentor she'd known. "Veridica was born from war. Without order, it would have burned. The Purge was necessary, dissenters threatened stability." "Your parents," he faltered. "Lyra was my friend. She wanted to expose the scanner's flaws. I couldn't let her unravel everything." Hoa's hands clenched. "You loved her, didn't you?" Jude's silence was answer enough. "I spared you," he said finally. "I raised you, trusted you. And you betrayed me." "You betrayed me first," Hoa said, her voice breaking. She drew a neural disruptor, aiming it at him. "Surrender, Jude. Face the truth." He shook his head. "Truth is a weapon, Hoa. You've wielded it, but you'll see, without order, Veridica will fall." Mira stepped forward, her disruptor raised. "It's over, Jude." But before she could fire, Jude activated a hidden panel, releasing a neural pulse. Hoa's vision blurred, her disruptor slipping from her hand. Jude lunged for a console, trying to restore the scanners, but Hoa tackled him, driven by years of buried rage. They struggled, her fingers clawing at his wrist device. With a final surge, she smashed it, short-circuiting the console. Jude slumped, defeated. Mira bound him as Veritas fighters stormed in, securing the tower. The scanners went dark, their red pulses fading. Outside, cheers rose as the broadcasts declared victory. The Judiciary had fallen.